good. Well, thank you for coming to Water Life today. It is so good to see everybody this morning. I'm excited about the service. That music was great. And hey, I just wanted to take a second before I get into this message to reiterate what Todd said. You know, we had a Water Life team in Haiti for the last week. We were 10 days out there doing ministry, and when we landed in Atlanta on Friday night, you know, I turn on my phone for the first time in 10 days and check out CNN, and you're just hit with this wave of bad news. And for me, that hits hard. If you know my history, I don't know if you do or not, but I pastored in African-American churches for 8 years. And I know a lot of law enforcement officers. I knew our last police chief, Joey Reynolds, was a friend of mine. And the current police chief, Scott Brown, is a friend of mine. I call him my friend. And so it hits hard for me because I feel that from all kinds of different angles. And it's terrible. Right, and it's terrible what is going on. And I just wanted to reiterate that at Water Life Church, we are so thankful for our African American and our law enforcement people who attend our church. Everyone is welcome at Water Life Church. I mean, everyone with all caps, everyone's welcome at Water Life Church. And, you know, everyone is welcome, but not everything is welcome. So hatred and fear are not welcome here. But the problem is that we're all human and we all have this tendency towards hatred and fear. It comes with the sinful nature that we're born with. But I firmly believe that Jesus' love can conquer those things. And I'm an optimist. I believe in Jesus. He's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He is the Prince of Peace, and God is love. So I believe that Jesus can conquer those things. And I'll tell you, when the world gets just a shade darker, it should mean that we're just shining all the brighter. And if we base our lives, if we base our church on Jesus, when the world gets a little darker, we're just shining all the brighter, because this place is about unity. This place is about Jesus. This place is about where He said there's no longer male or female, slave nor free, Jew nor Greek. Jesus said those words, and we believe those words. So I just wanted to say that. And I could preach on that. I could love to do a whole message on that, but I wasn't prepared for that on Friday night, so I'm going to go on to my other message that I had planned. So we're talking today about 100% life, and we're going to start a series today. We're going to end it next Sunday, and it's about living life to the fullest. It's based on John chapter 10, verse 10, where Jesus says, "I have come so that you may have life, and that you might have it to the full." Now, when Jesus says those words, He is speaking my language, because I love to live life to the full. I want a 100% life. I want a life that is full and abundant, and I want to really live. I don't know if you feel me on this. I don't know if you agree with me on this. We all want, I believe, a full and fulfilling life. But I have a problem, and maybe it's even my biggest problem. One of my biggest problems is that in my striving for a full life, I pack it too full. And when I pack my life too full with the wrong things, it actually goes against what Jesus wants for me. So when my life is too full, an overfull life works against a full life. And I struggle with this all the time. In fact, when Fernando, who does our bulletins and a bunch of our videos, he made this graphic. Look at your card on the front of your graphic. I got a kick out of this card because 100% life, right? There's a picture of a guy jumping off a cliff. And I know something about jumping off cliffs. If you guys know me a little bit, you might know that exactly a year ago to this weekend, I was at Wilson's Creek with my daughter Cassidy, and I'm all about living life to the full. I mean, I want adventure, I want a full life, I want action, I want all the stuff. This is my language. So I see this guy over here diving off a cliff into Wilson's Creek, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm going right there. I'm going to get up, I'm going to climb that cliff, and not only am I going to dive off that cliff, I'm going to do a beautiful dive. And it's going to be even better than his dive. So I get up there and I go and I just dive and I'm just like, phew, and I'm a bird. I'm going through the air. It's awesome. It's the most beautiful dive ever. But the result was not beautiful. Because when I hit the water, I went straight through the water and hit a rock square on with my head. And it was brutal. It was terrible, right? And I came up, I think I hit a rock, and everyone's just like frozen, right? You need a towel, you need to tension on that head and blood. It was terrible. I actually just finished paying for that last month. All right, we were on a monthly payment plan, right, for that thing. I still got my Harry Potter scar to show for it. All right, so I'll tell you, it's because I wanted to live a full life, but I gave it all 110%, which was 10% too much, right? And when you give everything like that, you could end up harming yourself instead of living that full life that Jesus wants for you. And we do that in all kinds of areas in our lives. Think about food. Right? We all love food. Anybody like food in here? We all love food. We love to eat, right? I mean, I love having some good food and feeling full. But you know you can overdo that, right? You can have some good food and pretty soon you're over full, right? And you're eating too much, right? And the Bible says, don't overdo it. Yeah, don't take the good things and praise God for that good food, but don't overdo it. And then you're left thinking, man, the Bible calls it a sin. I feel like sin right now, right? I feel like I'm going to explode. And it's a bad feeling because we overdo it, right? And of course, when you're done overdoing it in the food department, you got to go to the gym, right? And here's a video of some people who are overdoing it at the gym. Buddy, you're overdoing it, pal. You got to take a break, slow down. Read the instructions on how you're supposed to use that thing, right? And this guy's getting geared up. He is getting ready to overdo that pull-down machine, right? He's got his Tai Chi going on. He's ready. And when he tackles that thing, he's going to overdo it, right? Because he's mentally prepared. He's focused. And now here we go. He's going to go on it.
Everybody was kung fu.
He is into it. I mean, he is just pumped. He is ready to go. But I'll tell you now here, he's overdoing it. You're giving too much, buddy. You got to slow down, right? Take it easy, right? So we can overdo it in all these different areas, and that is not helping, right? But we do this in our lives, right? We get so busy in our lives that when we strive for a full life, we end up overdoing it and being overfull. And it's ironic that I'm giving this message at a point in my life where in the last month I have been going ridiculously too hard, right? The last month has been overfilled. And let me explain this a little bit. See, I believe you can go 110% on the right things for a short period of time. But then you need to take it easy. You need to take a break. You need to take a breather. If you're doing the right things, we'll all be busy at times. We're all going to have those certain times in our lives where we're working too hard. But if it's on the right thing, and if it's for a short period of time, it's okay, right? We've all had those times, in maybe you've been in college where you're just like, I got a million papers due, and I'm trying to hold down a job, and I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. For this period of time, I'm going to be pushing it a little too hard, but then I need to take a break, right? That's okay. You can do the right things for a short period of time, really, really, really hard, but you cannot do that for the long term. You can't even do the right things at 110% and do that forever. You're going to burn out, right? You're going to get worn out. And this last month has been one of those times where I've just been given 110%, and now I need to step back. It was funny. I was at the dinner table with my daughter. We got back from Haiti on Friday night. Saturday was the Blackberry Festival. I was there at 6:30 in the morning and worked all day over there. Got home from the Blackberry Festival. I got to get the sermon ready. Got to just go. And the whole month has been kind of like that. And Haley asked me around the dinner table, "So, Dad, what are you speaking about tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, I'm talking about the dangers of being overfilled, having an overfilled life, and how when you have an overfilled life, it'll work against the full life that Jesus wants for you." And I look over to my wife in the kitchen, and she just gives me the big eye roll. Right? She's just like, and I even heard her, I don't know if she said it out loud, but I heard her, Yep, and that's what, and so I'm just like, and I know, Rebecca, I know, I'm preaching to myself, all right? The main person who needs to hear this is me, right? So if you are in that situation, I'm here with you, right? I'm preaching this to myself. I've given 110%, but I need to take a step back now and analyze this and figure out, okay, what's my priorities, right? Because we're busy all the time, we're going to be missing the really important things in our lives. If we're always focusing in on the urgent, we're going to be missing in on the important. So we need to do that. We need to figure out what's going on, and we need to refocus. We need to do what Jesus did and refocus. Step back from time to time. this trip down to Haiti was absolutely amazing. And let me share a little bit with you. That was giving 110% for 10 days. And in that 10 days, we had a team of Water Life people down there, and you should all come next year. But in that 10 days, we fed almost 1,000 people. We did medical missions. We did 3 medical missions in 3 remote villages in Haiti, and we saw 550 people, and we gave almost $250,000 worth of prescriptions out to 550 people over that period of time. All those prescriptions were donated to us. I mean, it was incredible. We taught up to 500 kids at Vacation Bible School. It was absolutely amazing. We did 3 construction projects, including we finished off a chicken house for 2,000 chickens on the orphanage property so that those kids are going to have food and they're going to have an income from those chickens. We built a house, we finished a house for a pastor who was living in a Samaritan's house, a Samaritan's Purse tarp shack, the size of my bedroom, with 6 kids. One who was 11 years old and who had never been out of bed because she was severely handicapped. And the ministry built them a house. And it's as big as my bedroom and my living room put together. But for them, they were ecstatic about that. So we did all these things. It was go, 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 go. But I'll tell you, by the end, by that 9th day, we were done. I mean, all those good things, we were given 110%. But you cannot maintain that kind of attitude, that kind of energy output. You can't maintain that. And the thing is, in our culture, our busyness is like an epidemic. People are just busy, busy, busy all the time, and it seems like it never ends. No one steps back and takes a break and refocuses on what's important. See, people in our culture, they're so overfilled that they're not fulfilled. And that's a big problem. And so today my challenge is this, to take a look at your life and think about where you are in your life. Are you overfilled? Are you overbooked? Are you overbusy? I don't know if you ever feel like that. Do you ever feel like you have more bills than you can pay? More things to do than you have time to do it? Do you ever feel like life is so busy you can't get a breath? You're giving 110% and you're going to burn out because you don't have that much energy. Is it just me or does anybody else feel like that? Okay, man, I think it's an epidemic in our culture. And here's the thing. Jesus doesn't have that same attitude. When I moved to the South for the first time, I heard this saying. I asked someone, "How are you doing?" And they said, "Buddy, I'm running wide open." And it wasn't, in Canada, I would say, "I'm running wide open." But here it's, "Brother, I'm running wide open." It's wide open, right? I'm running wide open, brother. And I'll tell you, that it was interesting because I had never heard that term before, but people were proud of the fact that they were running wide open. And it seems like those wide open folks, they're always wide open. They're never half open or just idling, They're just always running wide open with all this stuff, and there's usually a laundry list of all this stuff. But I thought about, I think that wide open, now tell me if I'm wrong, I think that comes from like cars. You run a car wide open or something like that, or a motorcycle or something like that. But the thing with cars is it's good to run them wide open for short periods of time. Some people say that burns all the whatever, the stuff out of your engine or whatever, all the bad stuff out of your engine. Not a car guy, obviously. But, you run it wide open for a short period of time. They're built for that. But you don't run it wide open for like a long period of time because you're going to overheat and you're going to blow the engine, right? And so when we're running wide open for long periods of time, we got to realize that we're going to overheat. It's going to blow our engine. You never heard Jesus saying, "Hey, Jesus, how's it going?" "Brother, I'm running wide open," says Jesus. "Look at I'm healing people and I'm fixing things and I'm feeding people." Now, Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus gives 110% for short periods of time. Then even the Son of God steps back and takes a break. So let's look at a passage like that from the book of Mark. Mark chapter 6, verse 30 to 32. And here is a great example, because we always want to go back to what Jesus says about these things. Jesus says all kinds of things about life. He wants us to live life to the full, and I bet he's got the recipe of how that's accomplished. So here it is, Mark chapter 6, verse 30 to 32. I'll give you some backstory on this one. The apostles had just come back from a village where Jesus had sent them on their first mission by themselves to do the kingdom work. So Jesus sent the apostles into these villages and said, "You guys do the preaching now." See, they had been following Jesus for quite a while, and they saw Jesus do the preaching, Jesus do the healing, Jesus do the praying, and now Jesus sends them out on their first kind of alone mission. They're on their own, and Jesus is hanging back. And they come back, and they are fired up. These guys had been healing people, they had been preaching, they had been casting out demons, all this crazy stuff, and they are fired up. And listen to what Jesus does. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. So they are fired up. Then, because so many people were coming and going, they didn't even have a chance to eat. So there was a hectic environment. All this stuff was around. There were people everywhere. And Jesus didn't say, good, you guys are on a roll. Let's take care of these people next. Jesus didn't say that. This is what he said. He said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So they went away with themselves in a boat to a solitary place. Jesus, even the Son of God, knew the importance of stepping back, right? You go, 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 and then you got to step back and get refocused. See, I think Jesus knew that these guys, having had a taste of this busyness, all this stuff, all this activity, and it was all good activity. You know, they were starting maybe to focus more on their busy schedules and the things they had done. They were focusing maybe more on the doing than on the Jesus who was at the center of the doing. So they get caught up in the things they were doing, and they took their eyes off of Jesus, who was supposed to be the center of everything they were doing. So they needed to step back and take some time to refocus. Because if we're focused just on the things we're doing and not the reason why we're doing them and not the Jesus who's supposed to be behind all these things, if we're focused just even on the good things without Jesus, we need to take a step back and refocus. It's the same thing with our family. If we're focused just on doing things for our family so that we forget that we need to actually spend time in relationships with our family, you know, we could go on vacation, we could do all kinds of stuff, we could make money and work and do all kinds of stuff for our family, sometimes at the expense of our family, if we're not focused in on the purpose, on the relationships behind it. We can do all kinds of stuff for God and forget the God that we're doing things for. So we need to take a step back. And that's what Jesus wants for us, a full life, but not an overfull life of just activity, a life where we can be full and do incredible things, but also be at rest. And that's very important. That's what Jesus was trying to get across to them. And Jesus mentions this all over the place. There's all kinds of passages where Jesus talks about this. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Jesus says, come to me all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you what? I'll give you rest, right? Jesus knew the importance of focusing in on Him and resting. Jesus, in John 14, verse 27, Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and He says this, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives, right? And the world, especially our world, gives you busyness. It gives you activity. You need to go, go, go. That's kind of as the world gives. Jesus doesn't give you like that. He says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Jesus wants to give us peace. So here's the problem that I have with that. When Jesus says, I want you to live a full life, I want you to go and work for my kingdom, and then He says, I want to also give you peace and rest, for me, I have a tough time putting that together. I mean, it seems like a tension to me, right? Well, Jesus, how am I supposed to do kingdom work and rest at the same time? Right? Jesus says in Matthew 28, go and make disciples, but He also says, you know, be still and be at peace. Just like, well, Jesus, which is it? Is it go or is it stay? Is it do activity or is it just chill out? What is it? How do I work this together? There's a tension there. And I take a couple verses from the Psalms. And David wrote the Psalms, most of them. And between Jesus and David, there's the best leadership the world has ever seen. And this is what Psalm 127 says. Verse 1 and 2. And I think this is part of the key to being able to go and do and also being at rest. It says, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand and watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for He grants sleep to those who He loves. See, sometimes I think if we're just busy, busy, busy and not taking a break, we're not trusting Jesus with our lives. Maybe we're not even basing our life on Him. Maybe we're just basing our life on our own energy. Because if I'm basing my life on my own energy and I stop and take a break, everything stops. Right? My life is on pause. But here's the difference. If I'm basing my life on Jesus and I stop and take a break, He's still building. He's still working. He's still guiding my life. Sometimes I think if we are scared to take a break and take a rest because we think everything's going to fall apart, maybe we have trust issues. Maybe we're not trusting in God that He's got this under control. God's got it under control. The world's not going to fall apart when we take time to spend time with our faith and our family. We've got to trust God with this because He needs to be the one building the house. Psalm 46 verse 10 kind of continues that. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." If your life is so filled with the urgent things that you forget about the important things, you're not building your house on God. You need to focus back in on the important things. You know what? I think in our culture, it seems like busy, some people think it's a spiritual gift. But busy is not a spiritual gift. Busy can sometimes be the enemy of peace, right? You don't see in the gifts of the Spirit that busyness and activity is in there. No, it talks about love and joy and peace and patience. And all these things are things where just like that feeds our souls. That gets us back focused in on what is right and what are the important things are in our lives. But I don't know if you're like me, but my personality, I have a tough time doing that. I'm fully guilty of living at 110% capacity and running to the end of my energy on that. So I want you to ask you that. Here's our challenge today. Look at your life and look at what you're doing and how busy you are. And I want to challenge you today. What is one thing you can do about that to get refocused? What is one thing you can do to kind of refocus your life and get back into the full life that God really wants you to live? See, some of us, we're so busy doing things that we forget why we're doing them. And I hear people say, man, I'm so busy providing for my family. I'm just so busy providing for my family. When sometimes, this might sound hard, but sometimes to provide for your family, maybe you need to spend more time with your family and not just get more money for your family. So you just got to have that balance. And it's a tough tension, but it's something that we have to wrestle with, something that we have to solve if we want to live the full life that God wants from us. I'll give you a couple illustrations from our Haiti trip. You know, we learned a lot on this Haiti trip and a couple life lessons that I think if we could put some of these life lessons into place, we'd be a lot better as a church, as a society. We got really, really busy on that Haiti trip. And at one point in time, we were in this remote village in the middle of a jungle, and there were people everywhere. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of hungry and sick people. They were everywhere. And we had this medical clinic, and we had like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of prescriptions, and we had food going. Our ministry paid for all the food to feed those people and give them medication. That was all part of our cost. And it was busy. A guy named Caleb, he's one of the youth here at our church, him and I were the pharmaceutical people. So we were in the pharmacy, and we had people everywhere, but we had all these tables of drugs. We had hundreds of drugs with weird names, right? Like chloramethazoline, all this, you pharmacists, you have a gift. You can speak another language, right? I don't have that language. So we were here, we get the prescription note from the doctor. We had, we got to fill this for this person, right? And we have to go around searching. We had these pills here and this amount of those things and look for all this stuff, the antibiotics and this. And we would pull it all together, and it was busy. There were hundreds of people waiting. There were forms, being waved at us. Take mine, take mine. And I took those things and I said, every single one of these, I'm going to make a connection with every single person I give these drugs to. And so I would go, and when I got my stuff ready, I would go take the translator and I said, find this person. And I would just look at them. And I would say, okay, this drug is for that. This drug is for that. You take these at this time of day. You take these at this time of day. And I'd make eye contact. And I'll tell you, that eye contact, I would zone everything else out. All the busyness, I would just zone out, and I would focus in on the face of that one person. It might be an elderly person, right? It might be a young mom with a baby. These people were concerned. They were looking for help. And I would just focus in on them, and I would say, Bonjour, beneu, at the end. God bless you. And they would say, merci. And you could just You could just tell. I mean, you could just tell it was making a difference, right? When you can give a practical thing with that love and that relationship and that eye contact, it made a difference every time. And we did that hundreds and hundreds of times. It made a huge difference. If you could take your life and just tune out the busyness for a little bit and focus in on what is in front of you right now. Who is that person? Who is that son or daughter or family member? Who is that church member? Who is that person in front of you? That coworker, that fellow student, that person in front of you right now, and just focus in on them and care for that relationship. It makes a huge difference. And then as we did that as a team, we would wrap up. We would start every morning with devotions and wrap up every day. When people were used to that relationship thing, man, we took steps, spiritual steps. People were sharing things they've never shared before. You took more spiritual steps. You saw more discipleship in 10 days than you might see in a year, because people were open to relationship and they were relying on each other and they were relying on God. And it helped that we had no TV, no internet, no Facebook, no Instagram. We were completely unplugged. We were even unplugged from air conditioning. Now that maybe didn't help, but I'll tell you, we were unplugged. Right? And we grew together in a way that was absolutely phenomenal. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Facebook. I love watching CNN. I love all these things. I love Instagram. These things are all great. These things are all good tools for good communication. But I'm telling you, we need to unplug. Right? We need to unplug and focus in on that relationship that is right in front of us. What is the one thing you can do this week to focus in on what's really important? Because God wants you to live a full life. And so many of us, we're packing it full of things that are urgent but not as important. What's one thing you can do? I know what I can do, right? I've had this busy month, and in fact, I know more than one. I know 4 things. And I said them this morning, and my wife was in there. I barely made it through it. But the 4 things I can do is this. I can go on a mountain bike ride with my daughter, Cassidy. I need to do that. You just get out on that Zack's Fork Trail and hit the mountain bike trail with Cassidy, because we love doing that together. Right? I need to unplug and just spend that time to do that. I need to play a board game with my daughter Haley. We love to play board games together. You know, she's 18, going off to college, and we just need to sit down this week and play a board game together. I need to go sit out on a picnic blanket with my wife in our yard, and just with no phones and no computer, and just sit there, and be with her. I need to get on my horse Bill and go for a trail ride. That's just for me. All right? I need to do that. I need to go out into those mountains and do a trail ride just for me. I need to take some time to unplug. I've given 110%. You can do that if it's the right things for a short period of time, right? But then you need to unplug and focus in on why we're doing what we're doing. So what is it for you? Maybe you have a couple. I challenge you for one. What is one thing that you are going to do to focus back in on relationships, on your faith, and on your family? We see it in water life all the time that people are so busy, so busy, so busy. People don't have time for church. People don't have time for their families. People don't have time to sit down and eat together, right? These are all, and we don't want to guilt trip anybody. We're not a church that's about guilt trips. But when you take your focus off of your faith and off of your family, as a church, as a pastor, that's a big concern, because those are the big ones. Faith and family, those are the big ones that you need to focus in on. And when we see people like not showing up and not spending the time and being too busy, then we get concerned for people's spiritual lives. What's one thing you can do?